Ellie, Jeremiah, welcome, welcome. Rachel, I see some familiar faces and names. Hi, Sue, welcome, welcome. Good to see you all. All right. I think with the recording kicking off, I think that's time for us to rock and roll. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us this evening. I know school is kicking off again. I know it's a busy time of year, and so grateful, so thankful to see you all taking time out of your day to talk about how we can support our next generation of young voters in getting registered and participating in our democracy the first chance that they can get. Really excited to dive in today. My name is Molly Ford. Pronouns are she, her. I'm the Director of Education and Organizing with the Civics Center. We're a national nonpartisan organization. We train high school students and teachers across the country in how to run a nonpartisan voter registration drive in their school. Every year, millions of students, millions of young people turn 18. The vast majority of them are eligible to register to vote before they graduate high school. And so we think it's the last and best chance we have to make sure every teen is given a meaningful opportunity to register before they, fly off to college or their job or wherever they go in life. This is our last chance to make sure all of our newest voters get a chance to register to vote together. I'm delighted, as always, to be partnering with Open Democracy for this workshop. We've now been working together on high school voter registration and supporting drives in New Hampshire for 3-4 years now. I'll turn it over to Olivia. Do you want to say hi? Do you want to introduce your team?
Sure, I'm happy to say hi. Open Democracy is a nonpartisan nonprofit in Concord, New Hampshire, and we've been working with the Civics Center. As Molly's boss says, they were told to play in the sandbox with Open Democracy, and we've been playing in the sandbox, talking to other high school students about registering to vote across the Granite State. And really just want to also give a shout out to Deb Optimala with the Disability Rights Center, who's also helping kids, students with disabilities register to vote, which is also really important too. So we want to make sure we're inclusive of everyone. So it's great to have some students and some volunteers here. But Sam, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Sam Casson. I'm the high school voter registration coordinator here with Open Democracy. Um, we're excited to talk some high school voter registration with you all. Some numbers. I'm a stats guy, so I love talking numbers, and some strategy as well to take back into your communities and your schools when the school year opens up here in a few weeks. I'll pass it over to Maddie to introduce herself now.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I am Open Democracy's High School Voter Registration Fellow for this upcoming fall. Um, yeah, I'm gonna work with high schools and hopefully getting their drives set up as well as doing some things with Open Democracy. And I ran a drive when I was a student at Exeter High School. So hoping to talk. I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Beautiful. Thanks, Open Democracy team. All right, folks. Um, with that, let's get started. First and foremost, what I want to go over is what we're going to get out of this workshop. Our goals for this session are to talk about why we care about high school voter registration. We're going to talk about who is eligible in your typical high school, who in your school is eligible to register to vote today or this school year. We're going to talk about best practices for running a drive in your school. We're going to hear from Maddie about how she's run a successful drive in her high school campus. We'll learn from her kind of action report on how she's made this happen in her community. We'll talk about how to develop the team and the timeline to run an effective drive. And last but not least, we'll talk about free materials, resources, and support that you can get from Open Democracy and the Civics Center to make it all come together. Does this sound like the workshop everyone signed up for? Is everyone in the right place? Yes. Beautiful. Excellent. Okay. Let's get started. First and foremost, why do we care about high school voter registration? The fact of the matter is young people are registered to vote at much lower rates than older Americans. The chart that you see in front of you, this teal line kind of up at the top, nearing 80% in some cases, is the voter registration rate for adults 45 and older. Over the course of the last 20 years of elections. The red line that you see that hovers at about half that rate is the voter registration rate for 18-year-olds. You can see a couple things when you look at this chart. One is that, yes, older Americans are registered to vote at double the rates of our first-time voters. You can also see that it swings radically. The voter registration rate varies wildly. It peaks in presidential years and kind of dips really significantly in midterm years. In part because there's not a significant there's not a concerted effort to make sure young people are registered to vote every single year, regardless of whether there's a national election going on. We see that running voter registration drives in high school can be one way that we can remedy this. If we make this a part of everyone's high school tradition before they graduate, then what we would start to see is an evening out of this line. We would start to see young people being invited into our democracy equally, whether or not they were graduating in an even or an odd year. The other thing you'll see is we actually put some projections to this chart. If we're looking ahead to the next midterm election, we wanted to see, like, you know, if we compare youth voter registration rates to previous elections for 2026 and projected that out to 2026, what would it look like? You can see that if young people were registered to vote based on their highest historical rate in the last 20 years, that was 2008, then we'd have nearly 50% of 18-year-olds registered to vote. If young people were registered at much lower rates, like their lowest historical rate, which was in 2014, then we'd see about 26% registration rate for 18-year-olds. There's a huge gap, like nearly a 25%, nearly a quarter of young people of 18-year-olds could live in that gap. And it's up to us to make sure that we reach for that higher registration rate in the next upcoming election. Any questions so far on the registration rate for teenagers? Beautiful. All right. That's a look at our national data. Let's bring it home a little bit. In New Hampshire, 17,000 young people turn 18 every single year. What percentage were registered to vote in time for the 2024 election? We just saw in our last slide, I'll go back real quickly. In the 2024 election, the national voter registration rate for 18-year-olds was a little over 40%. What percent of Granite State 18-year-olds were registered to vote for the 2024 election? Drop in the chat your answer. Would you guess under 20%? For A, under 20%, B, 20 to 40%, or C, above 40%? What percentage of New Hampshire of 18-year-olds were registered to vote? Ellie and Olivia say A, under 20%. Above 40, B, A, B, B, A, C, B, B. Okay, we're all across the map. Thanks, Sam. All over. Okay, I think the majority of folks are saying B, A's and B's. So we're thinking, we're trying to be conservative here. We're thinking like less than 40% of New Hampshire 18-year-olds were registered to vote. We've done this quiz every workshop since we started collaborating 2-3 years ago. And this year is the first time that we actually get to answer C. This is the first time that we've seen the voter registration rate for 18-year-olds reach above the national average. And this in 2024, 64% of 18-year-olds were registered to vote, which was up from 27% when we did this, when we pulled this data in October 2024. So just prior to the election, we saw a lot of young people did take advantage of same-day registration. There's still a gap. The registration rate for 18-year-olds was 64%, and for adults, it was 80%. But we are seeing a huge upswing here. Not only was there an increase from 27% to over 60% in just the 1 month leading up to the election, since the Civics Center and Open Democracy started working together in June of 2022, that rate is up from 8.5%. We're seeing that if we make voter registration a part of the high school experience, if we make it a part of the culture and fabric of communities, not only are more students going to access this opportunity to register to vote in school, but it also supports and supplements same-day registration. It makes it so that the overall registration rate is going to increase and improve if we make sure that this opportunity is available in school, and gives us an opportunity to educate students on how they can take advantage of opportunities like same-day registration. When we bring these events to students where they are, then we know that that it increases the baseline rate of participation of teens in elections. How many of these schools had drives? Olivia, did you want to share about some of our drive impact?
Well, or Sam can. I think, Portsmouth has had a drive consecutively for the last 3 years. The Goffstown town clerk went to the town hall. Bedford had 3 voter registration drives. Merrimack had a drive. Concord had a drive. Sam, help me out. Some
Milford held one. Both Nashua schools in 2024 held one.
Manchester
Keene
held one.
Derry, Pinkerton held one. The 3 Manchester public schools held one. And so it's Exeter did hold one. Julie, I see that in the chat. And so, yeah, a lot of the towns here on the graphic ended up holding a voter registration drive, and that's why you see some of those towns that did have higher voter registration rates.
We see that when young people hold drives in their communities, it has a measurable impact on the voter registration rate of 18-year-olds in their cities and towns. So that's what we're all about. We're about making sure we continue to see this progress, that we can continue to work towards making voter registration a kind of natural part of the high school experience for seniors. It can be, one more rite of passage, another step into adulthood, along with, applying for college, or writing your first resume, or this can be one more opportunity to kind of be welcomed into adulthood when we make voter registration a part of their last year in school. Not only do we see an increase in voter registration, we also see that young people in New Hampshire turn out to vote. When they are registered, they turn out to vote at really high rates. I didn't update this for 2024. I'll go ahead and look that data up after this call. But in 2022, 83% of New Hampshire 18-year-olds who registered turned out to vote in the 2022 midterms. We know that young people care a lot about the issues that impact their day-to-day lives, and given the opportunity to register and given the support needed to take that kind of overcome that bureaucratic hurdle, they will exercise their right to vote. They will become active members of our civic life. So we're really excited that you all could join today. I want to see these numbers continue to rise, and you all are a part of that movement. With that, let me turn it over to Maddie. Maddie, I know you introduced yourself at the top. You said you've run a drive before. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah. So I learned about voter registration drives with Open Democracy in the Civics Center. I went to their in-person workshop in 2023, and that's when I heard from other people their successful drives at their own high schools. And Exeter hadn't had a drive when I was a student, so I kind of made it my mission to have that done before I graduated in 2024. So as a senior, I ran my drive during senior week of 2024. I was able to register 45 of my peers and eligible voters. I was in a class of 340 students, so big class, and we had 6 towns. So I had to get a clerk or a supervisor of the checklist from 6 towns, and we all came together for 2 days over my senior week to register voters. Um, yeah, so a little bit about the success and why it did as well as I think it did. Um, it's very important to make sure everyone knows their ID requirements when you're running a drive. I think getting the word out about your drive is also big as well. I would also, having my drive was a little bit unique because it was 2 days, and it really gave the opportunity for students who forgot their stuff the first day to bring it in the second day. I also got, at my school, I got the student government and the student government teacher involved with my idea and really worked that into that. That is a big part. So I personally wasn't a member of student government, but just giving that to the student government and making sure that they have some sort of part, and that was a big reason my drive did well. And that teacher involved was very passionate about my project and really wanted to support me through everything. A lot of a drive is just communicating and organizing. So I would just say to get ahead of all of that early. It is a lot of moving parts. So just making sure you have open lines of communication with everyone involved and just getting that information relayed is really the biggest part. You are kind of the middleman and everything. Also, a big part of my drive is I passed it down to a freshman at the time, but she's now going to be a junior, and she's in this photo with me. Her name is Amalia. So getting that passed down and that tradition really worked into the school. We were able to have, or she was able to have a drive the following year when I had already graduated. Yeah, some things I might do differently, and hopefully you guys might for your drive, is just sending emails out to parents too, keeping them in the loop, and you can like email everyone. I know like a lot of the schools have an email chain for all of the parents as well, so emailing that out and just getting ahead of notifying people early and announcements and where the location will be of the drive and all that information is also very important. And I did receive a little bit of apprehension from some of the town clerks during my drive. And I just reached out to people outside of the school that were very supportive of my efforts and had them reach out to people in the towns that weren't exactly supportive of what I was doing. And really, that changed their mind. And eventually, everyone came together to have a drive. So just get used to maybe hearing no. It's not going to be easy. But if you just keep persisting with everything that all your efforts and everything you're doing, people will change their minds and listen. So yeah, I think that's basically recaps my entire drive, and I can answer any questions if anyone has anything. But yeah,
And I just want to say that, they called it a voter registration form collection because
yeah,
one of the supervisors of the checklist said, kids aren't registered to vote until we have a public meeting of the supervisors of the checklist. So Maddie renamed her drive and she called it what the supervisors of the checklist asked her to. So,
yeah,
she was like the one that I think overcame the most obstacles. But Susan asks a question.
yeah. What were the concerns of people who weren't initially enthusiastic? The main concern was leaving the actual town hall to go and register someone. And then I eventually learned that this then sets the precedent that if they came to my drive, and because since I asked them, they have to go to, say, if a nursing home asks them to come to their drive and register people there, they now have to do that since they made the effort to come to my drive. So the initial concerns were just that this was setting a precedent that maybe they didn't want to follow through with or continue after my voter registration drive. Um, yeah, I never really got a full answer to that, but that's kind of what I heard and gathered from everything.
I also heard from one of the supervisors of the checklist who has a full-time job, that they had to take time off of work in order to go to Maddie's school. Which said, thank you very much. I appreciate you,
For sure.
doing that. So, remember, our supervisors of the checklist are volunteers.
Yeah, that as well. But I think so the time of my voter registration form collection was a shortened period of time. It was only about 35 minutes every day. And I think that had some benefits and had some cons. Some benefits may have definitely been that they didn't have to take that much time out of their day, maybe just an hour or so. But yeah, so I think that definitely helped with convincing people as well, was just having that set time and set day and being like, all you have to do is show up. So,
I have a question about this. So I ran into this issue a few years ago. My name is Rachel. I'm from Hollis, just to remind you. I ran into this issue a few years ago when I tried to set up my drive when I was a high school student, and I ran into a problem where sometimes like these elected positions in small towns are very like set in their ways and they don't really want to work with young people. Like, what's some advice that you might have for maybe younger people trying to work with these older systems? And what did you do to kind of get them on board to your cause?
yeah. Um, so I think teaming up with Open Democracy definitely helped. That gave me a network of people who were supportive of this. And I think just putting pressure on these towns through many different channels eventually causes them to respond. I mean, that's what happened in my case. Um, so maybe just using all of your resources that you have and like persistence is probably the biggest key. I was emailing people every day, every week leading up to this. So I think that the advice I would give is don't give up. Your vote is gonna matter once you're registered and you have that right. So I think really getting that message across and just continuing with your efforts, eventually there will be something that changes. So that would be my biggest thing is just persistence and using all the resources you have and everyone that you know, letting them know that this is what's going on and having them put pressure on these people as well.
And I'll just say, like, we're part of a team. So in Maddie's case, when she was having a supervisor of the checklist not answer, I had a relationship with a select board member who I could call and say, hey, do you, you see this person on a regular basis, can you check in with them? So I do think that there's other, think about the adults in your life and who might have relationships. And I will say, don't forget about the League of Women Voters, because they were able to help us secure one of the towns in Kearsarge because they had a personal relationship too. So remember, you know, small town politics play into this stuff. Deborah.
Yeah, I have a question, because these are all good things. Is remembering the students who experience disabilities in your school, and they should be registering to vote also. And there are some tips the DRC could give you about reaching out to those students and to those parents. And we have resource materials that you can use, you can ask for and use. But it's important that we are inclusive, especially in New Hampshire, because those 18-year-olds, it doesn't matter if you have a guardian or not, you have a right to register to vote and vote in New Hampshire. And that's a critical difference than most states.
And Julie asked about, and Sam answered in the chat, it depends on the school, but I think it's really important to have buy-in, whether that's the student council or the principal or other people, to sort of help find that time.
Yeah.
Portsmouth is the most successful time, where they have a day where they pick up their cap and gown and they make it part of the program. It's like part of a checklist. Go to the library, check in to see if you have any books that you need to return, or, go to the table and register to vote. So I think, finding a good time that's good for your school is something that I think each school has done something slightly different. I mean, one school did it as a outdoor fair. Kevin Fleming and Winnicott did it at a time that worked for the supervisor's checklist. So I think you just have to find the time that works for your community.
Yeah. Yeah, I did mine during, we have an advisory period at Exeter, so I did mine during then. So that's why it was over 2 days. We had 2 advisory periods a week. But I did initially try to do the cap and gown like Portsmouth as well.
Isn't it an advantage to contact whatever social studies or say civics teachers in the high school? Because my short experience of a high school drive, they had no idea what was going on, what was set up that day. And for them to know beforehand and, bring it part of class, to me would have been quite an advantage, or have these students more prepared.
Yeah.
And maybe Kevin, who is a retired social studies teacher, could help with that.
Well, so many times the supervisors of the checklists are just, I think, kind of nervous about being out sometimes in the communities. I don't know how common that is, but in the regional schools, like in Winnicott and Exeter, Maddie must have had to deal with that. You just have to find the ones that are cooperative and are willing to do it, and then the others might follow that lead. So that's the big help. And I thought Maddie's idea of connecting with some social studies teachers and connecting with underclassmen, maybe even some clubs. There might be a sustainability club that would like to help with something like this. Olivia, your point is just try to find all the resources that you can, and just keep going, just keep at it.
Thanks.
Maddie, did you want to add?
Yeah, I got lucky. The student council, kind of the person who ran it, was also already involved and interested in doing a drive, as well as a social studies teacher. So I don't know if that was just coincidence or that was something he was passionate about, but that is what happened for me. I think I did educate I came in with a lot of knowledge, so I wanted to make sure everyone knew what was going on just because I had done workshops and I figure out what to do. So I think just finding a teacher that's there to support you, whether or not it's a social studies teacher, um, I think that's probably what I would say.
Yeah. And even her social studies teacher, when they tried to do a fire drill, ran interference and had them pull the fire drill after the voter registration drive. So
Yes. Uh,
I
Yeah, go
do
ahead,
have
Deb.
another statement. There are a lot of new requirements for registering to vote in New Hampshire now. And I would recommend that you tell the students well in advance that you're running a drive because they have to collect this information. And some of them might have a real ID. That is not proof of citizenship. So that's a little confusing. Again, the DRC has a file.
I
Yeah.
think that's a good segue. Shall we start with our eligibility and ID requirements? Yes.
I was thinking the exact same
Maddie,
thing.
perfect. Maddie, thank you for sharing your story. I imagine we will tap you for more comments as we go along. But let's let me reshare. And then Olivia, can you take us through the eligibility and ID requirements to register to vote?
sure. So if you're 18 years or older, on election day. So if your sort of town elections in Exeter are not till March of next year, and you're doing a fall drive, then 17-year-olds can, fill out that form. So they have to be 18 years old or older on election day. If you're in a city that has elections this fall, like Manchester, has a September election, so a September primary. So, you have to sort of look when your community has your next election day. You have to be a US citizen, and then you have to be domiciled or live in that town or ward that you're seeking to register to vote. So one drive in Conval, which has 9 schools, one of the kids wanted to register with the Antrim town clerk, but couldn't because doesn't live in Antrim. They have to register with the town they live in. Great. So we do have new laws, and the governor signed some on Friday. So in order to register to vote, you need a driver's license or some form of photo identification. You need to prove identity, age, citizenship, or domicile. Your driver's license has your date of birth on it, so it proves your age and identity. A student identification card will prove your identity unless you go to a private school, which doesn't count. Domicile, if your driver's license has your correct mailing address or where you live on your driver's license, then it will also prove domicile, but that's only if your address is current and you haven't moved since you turned from 16 getting your driver's license to 18. You do need to prove citizenship. So your birth certificate proves your citizenship, your passport proves citizenship, or naturalization papers prove citizenship. The other thing that your, birth certificate does have is your date of birth, and your passport has that too. So those also help you prove age, which age is pretty much the easiest thing to do. Identity has to be a photo ID, citizenship, and then where you live. Sam, do you want to, the new law in New Hampshire there's 4 ways to prove domicile. And it's either your driver's license.
Yeah, I can hop in.
Thank you.
So the attestation form for registering to vote to prove domicile is being enforced much more strictly than it has in the past. And it reads that you have to have one of 4 documents anywhere in the world in order to register. If you have one of those 4 documents, they must be presented at the time of registering. Otherwise, if you don't have any of those 4 documents, you're able to sign the attestation form saying that you don't have any of these and that, reasonable proof, for example, like a benefit statement, a W-2, a piece of mail that's sent to your name and your current address to prove domicile. The 4 documents are your driver's license, if your address is current, like Olivia said, or a state issue ID card for anyone who has one of those who isn't a driver, a New Hampshire resident vehicle registration. Some students don't have those either. A picture identification issued by the U.S. government that contains your current address, or a government issued check, benefit statement, or tax document. If students have any of those 4 categories of domicile, they must present those. And like I said, it's being much more strictly enforced after the 2024 elections with a lot of new voting laws and voter registration laws that are being put into effect.
So I think as Deborah mentioned, as Maddie mentioned in her discussion of her voter registration drive, because this is so complicated and students do need to bring will be required to bring multiple types of documents to school that they wouldn't normally. It's critical to give students advanced warning, give them time to collect these documents. This is a great opportunity to pull in social studies teachers to make announcements in class and kind of go over the requirements so that they understand what they need to bring. This is a great opportunity, a great reason to bring parents into the conversation so that, they know why their child's asking for their birth certificate all of a sudden. We've seen some schools go so far as to print out this chart or a list of acceptable documents and give every student a file folder to just put the documents in so that they kind of come prepared to their drive with the documents that they need. And yes, the folks in the chat will be sending out all the slides. We have this document available in our resources to print out or have on hand, and we'll send the recording.
And in the toolkit that you'll get a link to also has another document that you can make a poster for your school to put up ahead of the drives. So you have to register to vote in person. New Hampshire does not have online voter registration. So you have to do this either with your town or city clerk or your supervisor to the checklist or on election day. So you have to actually talk to a real person. Students will ask you, why can't I register to vote? And you have to tell them, well, if you lived in 36 other states, you could, but not in New Hampshire. We haven't passed a law to change this. So many students think they haven't had a lot of interactions actually having to deal with this sort of stuff online, like real people, because they do so much of their life online. So what's on the voter registration form? I just want to cover this quickly. Some of this is obvious. Students will be able to fill out their name and address, but they will ask you, what is my ward number? And you say, if you live in a city, we live in the city of Keene, we live in Ward 2 now. You have to put your place and date of birth. So that sometimes confuses students. Do I put Concord Hospital or can I just put Concord, New Hampshire? Date of naturalization, if you're dealing with a student that has been naturalized, or an immigrant or refugee family in New Hampshire. The previous registration information. If students are registering for the first time, they can leave the previous registration information blank because they were never previously registered anywhere. You also on the voter registration form have to declare a party. So you have to say Republican, Democrat, or if you want to, you can say undeclared if you don't want to declare a party. And then there's a part where you have to put, which document you bring, which the supervisor, the checklist, or the clerk does. But you have to sign the form at the bottom. So don't let students walk away without signing the form on the bottom.
Right. Any questions on the IDs or what's on the voter registration form itself? Apologies that we can't actually show you the form. We legally can't do that. So here's just what you can expect on it. All right. All right. So why are we having this conversation now? Open Democracy and the Civics Center, we've now been working together for going on 3-4 years to support voter registration across the state. We do this through 2 annual campaigns. In the fall, we run an initiative called High School Voter Registration Weeks. Especially in election years, or especially in cities or towns where there is a fall election, it can be really important to run a voter registration drive in a high school community in the fall so that any students who are eligible to vote in that first fall election don't miss their chance to participate in their first ever election. So every fall we offer this training, support and resources to make sure that students, especially in places where there's an opportunity to vote coming up, that those students are given a chance to register to vote before their registration deadline. So high school voter registration weeks take place throughout September and October. As Olivia mentioned earlier, one of the first actions that you'll take in planning your drive is looking up to see if your town or city has an upcoming election, and make sure to host your voter registration event before that deadline. So you can choose whatever time works with your election calendar and works within your school community to run a voter registration drive. If September and October, if there's not an upcoming election or you need more time to run a voter registration effort, never fear. Every spring, we also run Cap, Gown, and Ballot. Cap, Gown, and Ballot is our spring voter registration campaign. We do this because, again, the vast majority, as the school year goes along, more and more young people age into eligibility, and running a voter registration drive before graduation means that many more students will be eligible to register by the time that that drive date comes around. So we're going to be offering these kinds of trainings and support throughout the year, whether you want to take advantage of high school voter registration week, Cap, Gown, and Ballot, or both. Either way, young people who volunteer to participate in this program and learn about voter registration and conduct some sort of voter education event in their school community, they can be eligible for a gift card of $150. We'll award up to 3 gift cards per high school team. So up to 3 students working together on a drive can be eligible for a gift card. Or if, say, a club is working together or a larger group, we will award a $450 gift card to kind of the club, so that they can run, they can contribute to their kind of school activities and whatnot. So like I said, high school voter registration weeks are running all throughout September and October, but we also have opportunities throughout the school year to run a voter registration drive. It really depends on your kind of election calendar and the school calendar. But either way, students can be students who volunteer can be awarded for their participation in the program. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sam. Sam, do you want to walk us through kind of step-by-step guide for running a voter registration drive, whether it's for high school voter registration week or a Capgallon ballot in the spring?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, this is the fun part, right? Getting into the details. I'm sure all of you want to hear a little bit of strategy. Um, and so we'll get into some of the steps to do that. So step one is obviously choosing your strategy. Um, each school is going to be in a unique situation. Some schools towards the end of the year don't want to have it during, uh, capping down distribution, but maybe there's a spring carnival that they're doing. Maybe there's an assembly that they're having. These events are pretty easy to be tacked on to something that they're already doing if you're already running into that problem on step one. I've had representatives from schools tell me, we have a lot going on. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to fit another thing in. And like I said, it's easy to tack these things on um, to an event that's already established. It's also great to have an event on its own. For example, Ella from Laconia held her event in the library. She had students walk throughout the day, learn a few things, um, embed some voter education elements, and then have registration as part of the event as well. Alvern High School in the bottom photo, they invited supervisors of the checklists and town clerks to attend and have the students register there. That tends to be a more popular um, strategy and setup than Ella from Laconia's, but both work fantastic.
I'll skip that for now.
Step two, we're going to try to pick a date, time, and location. A lot of you were dropping questions in the chat or concerns that you had. And like Maddie said, it's best to get ahead of these as soon as possible, right? Olivia mentioned that some supervisors of the checklist have full-time jobs. They may need to take time off of work. The further you can set that date out and get ahead of the coordination efforts with some of these individuals, the more likely they are to agree to the event. As long as they're made aware of the date, time, and when the event is going to take place. Yeah. Step three is building your team. This is student-led drives tend to have the highest success rate. Um, Obviously, we've all been there. We've all been students. Sometimes they don't want to do what, their parents or adults, teachers. Uh, if we say, hey, you should register to vote, it doesn't feel the same coming from us as it does their peers and their friends saying, hey, maybe we should register to vote. The election's coming up. It's super important to be civically engaged. And so building your team, you obviously have to have a town or city clerk or supervisor of the checklist. Without them, these events are not possible. As, like I said in the chat, there's no online voter registration, no third-party voter registration. Has to be in person with these officials. Next is educators and administrators. These teachers are going to be great for blasting out announcements to their classes. For seniors, those teachers who have a lot of seniors, that they're able to speak to them about, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is the date, this is the time, this is what you need right at the end of class. And they're going to have the ability to know the logistical efforts behind the scenes of the school, right? Like where the tables are, where the chairs are, what closet they're located in, stuff like that. Um, that's super important to having a successful drive as well. We touched on students. Students are the lifeblood, right? They're who we're trying to register, and they're also your biggest promoters for higher turnout. We mentioned parents as well. Without parents, a lot of these young adults are not aware of where these documents are, right? They're probably still living with their parents or guardians, and those individuals are going to have, say their birth certificate or passport, naturalization papers, etc. So if there's a PTA at the school, try to get them involved for getting in touch with parents about what students are going to need to bring to school that day. Finally, is community volunteers. Like Maddie said, reaching out to members of her community that had relationships or even no relationships with their local officials helped put the pressure on them and have them attend the drive as well.
And there's a woman who is a community volunteer, no connection to high school students, was able to call the high school in her town and help get a high school voter registration. So whoever she talked to at the front desk was able to connect her with the right people. So you as a community volunteer, even if you don't know a high school student, can make those connections. And we've seen it possible. And not only did Donna do one school, she called a different school too and got another school. So community volunteers have a huge impact too.
Yeah, community volunteers, I like to call the most flexible of the roles, right? It could be something as sending a note to their local officials. It could be as big as getting the idea of a high school voter registration in front of the administration at these schools. So each school and each volunteer is going to be super flexible on their fit to the puzzle. Step 4, obviously, this is a super, super big one. You don't want to go through all the planning, all the execution, getting everyone there, and then have nobody show up. It's important to promote the drive. Like I said, you're going to go through all the efforts that you make to get people there, to have the tables laid out, the chairs set up, have all your banners, your posters put up around school. Uh, you do not want that to go unnoticed. So it's important to promote. Um, Invite your local news organization to cover the event. We've had, I think Olivia dropped a link here in the chat about Laconia and that story that was written. We just had one written about Kearsarge a few months ago at the end of the year. Invite your local news organization that helps spread the word beyond your immediate community. Before the drive itself, think about social media. Kids nowadays, as we know, are all over different social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever they're on, that's where you want to focus. Emails are great for passing along information, whether that be what students need. It could be an email to parents, administrators. We have template emails for you to send out as well. Kids are all in text groups and group chats. If they are not, I hate to break it to you, they might be lying. They all have group chats. This is a great way for grassroots marketing for students to promote their drive within those group chats. Flyers and posters, like I said, with the emails, we have template flyers and posters for students to be printed out and posted around the school. In-class announcements, I talked about those a little bit in step 3. And then the community, parents, local media, in order to help spread the word.
We'll send a bunch of resources to help. Sam named a bunch of them, template emails, our toolkit, which includes, the the flyer with the ID and documentation requirements, but also we'll send a free democracy in a box toolkit with all the materials students need to promote a drive, posters, flyers to hang around campus or at their table, stickers, candy, T-shirts for drive organizers, clipboards, pens. We partner with vote writers to provide little cards that students can keep in their wallet for when they have registered to vote. It has the ID requirements for voting, and also has a hotline for if they ever face any issues at the ballot box. So really incredible resource there. A bunch of free physical materials as well as digital, the email toolkits, the social media templates, flyer templates, so that students can create their own. I will say one note about the stickers and the buttons and the candy is that you cannot bribe someone to register to vote. And so these materials should be made available to kind of promote the drive, and anyone who walks by is welcome to one. You cannot withhold a Jolly Rancher from someone if they choose not to register to vote. But these materials, all the same, are a really great way to promote an event and get people excited about it and treat it as the celebration that it deserves to be.
Awesome.
Back to you, Sam.
Thank you. And obviously, step 5 is you don't want this to be a 1-year activity. It's going to take a lot of time and effort to make a lasting change in these communities. And so, like Maddie said, she was a senior at the time, wanted to make these efforts string along after she graduated. And so she passed it down to a freshman who was going into her sophomore year in order to continue to carry out these drives. So think about connecting it to a younger student, a class office, a club, student group. That way, as students go in and out of high school, hopefully those groups, class offices will still be in place, and therefore it can be part of their yearly tradition. Portsmouth, for example, connects it to their class office. The juniors every year put it on for the seniors. And so, when it's the juniors' turn to become seniors and register to vote, it's a self-repeating cycle. Obviously, you're going to want to reflect on your experience. Maddie, I think, did a great job in her student success story, talking about here's what I did, here's what I would change if I could go back and do it again. And that way, you're building a more successful experience year after year. And then make a plan for next year. Have those students who you're passing it down to, have a conversation with them on your reflection. Think about how you're going to add, how they're going to add to your plan that you had, or change a few things, and what that new plan is going to look like.
A reminder about this opportunity to support a voter registration or civic engagement event at your school. Up to 3 students or a club are eligible to participate. By attending today, you've completed step 1. And then as students plan your event, run your event, and report back, then you can be eligible for a $150 gift card.
Alrighty. So this is, I'm really excited to share. We've developed what we're calling Adopt a School. This is for community members who are looking to get involved, but don't know where to start. I know there was a question in the chat about, we might not have a connection to a student. How do we overcome that? And so we've developed Adopt a School here. This picture that you see is every high school in the state of New Hampshire. This map is available to anybody in this call. It will be sent out to you as well. It's interactive. It's just a Google map, but like I said, it shows every high school. So say you're in Hanover and you want to look at Hanover or Lebanon High School. Say you're in Manchester and you want to see the different schools in Manchester. You can zoom in and out according to your area. So find your local high schools. Feel free to send me an email if you're interested in helping. I can add your name to each school, and we can help build that team that we talked about in step 2. And we'll connect you with any connections that we have at that school. Could be a teacher, student, other community members, in order to help build that team a little more organically as time goes on. I know we're a little bit over time, so I wanted to quickly go through that. If anyone has any questions, please drop them in the chat, unmute. Feel free to ask us directly. Any questions about anything that we talked about in the entire presentation? Something that has been pressing on your mind? Maybe it's related to strategies, requirements, Maddie's story, anything that we did not answer. All right. I'm seeing some good reviews here in the chat. Love to see that. The next one that we have, we're going to do an in-person training on October 4th. That's going to be at the Concord Community Center from 10 to 2. This is a great way for students that you have maybe in the back of your mind, teachers that you have in the back of your mind, other community members who maybe didn't RSVP to this one. This is a great opportunity for them to participate and get involved similarly to the presentation that we had here. It's going to be a lot of fun. It always is. I had a ton of fun last year. And, hopefully I'll see some of you there as well. This is the contact information for me if anybody needs it. Deborah, I believe you are right. I believe there is a municipal election in Concord as well. So that'll be great timing for that. That's my email there. That's the phone number as well. I'll be under extension 5, I believe, unless something changed. I haven't called the number in asking for myself, but it was extension 5. So that's the number if you ever need to call me. That's my email. I'm happy to chat with each and every one of you about your individual plans. And yeah, I'm happy to say thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking some time out of your evenings in order to learn a little bit more about high school voter registration. You can make a difference. We believe in the power of one person. And so we're happy and excited to get out there during the month of August, September, and October to register the next generation of voters.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Happy summer, folks. Enjoy.
Thank you, Kevin. Good to see you. Thank you, Deborah. Beautiful.